Hi there, and welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Into the Nothing with your favorite host, Patrice Douglas. Today on this podcast, I have a beautiful friend of mine, and also he was my first coach ever, the guy that opened me up to self-love and self-compassion in 2017. Tom Cartwright, welcome to Into the Nothing.
Absolutely excited to be here. I can't wait to do. We've done one very early on, and I don't know, I'm just more excited to be here now because it just all resonates. And the title, as I said to you earlier, the title of Into the Nothing, it just gives me jitters. Like, get me into that conversation.
Yeah, because you are experiencing being in the nothing right now, which is the catalyst for this conversation. I'm excited to talk to you about the process you're going through at the moment to look into your body and removing, going into the void and eliminating sugar and caffeine from your diet, and what impact that's having on you. But yeah, as you said, Tom, we had a conversation on Into the Nothing. It's actually episode 14 for anyone who's interested. And the title of that episode is called Addiction, because Tom is the founder and CEO of the business company called Drink Less, Feel Fresh. Because in that episode, if you choose to go and listen to it, you will hear Tom's story of coming up against building a different relationship with alcohol and gambling, and just the real of what that was like for you, and how you've obviously felt self-compassion and just had an awareness to start making shifts and changes. And I remember when I worked with you in 2017, when I'd come into your office, Tom, because we had a few months together where you were my coach and my mentor, which kickstarted a whole process of self-development, which I'm so grateful for. But I remember coming into your office in your home in Sydney, and you had on the wall a vision board for your life and the family and the home that you wanted to create with your beautiful wife, Jamie. And I really was so impressed and admired how you just executed on that. Like within a few years, you created that reality and moved to Port Macquarie and have a beautiful home. And you now have 2 little girls, and you've got a third one on the way. And it was really cool to see someone's vision board, and you'd chat to me about it in those sessions. And then a few years later, you executed on that dream and made it your reality. And I think that, it's just such an impressive thing, because so many people talk about it, but who actually does it?
Thank you. You reminded me of I'm going to say the good old days. Jesus, coming up on 10 years next year. So thanks for the reminder. I wanted to share, like, you might not know this about me, but I've just been an absolute fan when it comes to personal development, healing, self-help, letting go. There's a couple of ways you can go about it. And one way is building the best version of you, adding to your life, adding boundaries, adding healthy habits, adding financial management systems, adding a coach, adding a specialist. One of the things I've just always resonated with and done really well is just the opposite, which is detoxing. Just detoxing from things. I think it's such a beautiful approach to change. Everyone wants to ask the question, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? One of the questions you can just ask yourself is, like, what do I just need to stop doing? We have this assumption that if we stop doing something that's not good for us, like, it's not going to work out, when our body is literally designed to reorganize itself. And if we can just stop doing certain things and let go of certain things and places and people, our body will literally heal. And that's the experience I'm definitely having, that we'll probably dive into later. At the moment, is like just quitting the consumption of 2 things has created more, what I feel is more emotional release work, healing, and presence for myself than anything I've done in 9 years. I'm coming up 10 years, actually.
Yeah, you were sharing with me earlier around your business partner, who I had the pleasure of meeting 2 weeks ago when you invited me to a personal development weekend, and Nate. And that weekend was the first kind of personal development event that I have done in a couple of years. I just kind of took a break. I'm very committed and disciplined and devoted to my own practices and getting to know myself, but I haven't had any kind of exterior influence. And so that was the first time. And it was truly so refreshing to go to that event, because I mentor women. I am a woman. Most of my friends are women. And it was so refreshing to be at a personal development event and be mentored and facilitated and guided by two men. I was just like, fuck, I really needed that. I just needed this. There's something about like your emotional intelligence is so present and so obvious between you and Nate. But just like, I think that just that masculine, just focus, get it done. It was light, it was simple, it was deep, but it just moved quickly and it was just like direct. And I was like, I feel like sometimes us gals can just be really in the emotional processing and in a lot of chat when it could be a lot cleaner and more succinct. But I remember you saying just before Nate was saying to you, Tom, like you are so psychologically across it, like in terms of the mind and in terms of your awareness within the mind and psychology, you are bang on and you are such a safe space. But he was saying to you, he's like, if you really want to go to that next level within yourself and your awakening and connection to real self, the nothing, then looking at your body is paramount. And you were like, yeah, but clearly something has opened up for you because it's time. It's something within you. Your soul's like, rightio, Tom, let's look into the body. You are primed and ready for this kind of exploration. So can you talk a little bit about that, where you're like, okay, it's time to go into the body?
Yeah, Nat Hodges is my business partner, and we're very close friends. We've become very good mates over the past few years. And yeah, as you said, I'm just going to be really honest. I devoted a lot of my life, my professional life and personal endeavors to master my psychology and to master my emotional world, which meant learning to develop a healthy ego, learning to develop a great relationship with my mindset. You know, some people would call that how to set boundaries, how to look after your needs, you know, how to put yourself first, but at the same time, make sure the people closest to you can come with you, how to stick to your promises, how to stick to your commitments, et cetera, et cetera. And then a lot of emotional healing work, which is cleaning up enough, you know, emptying skeletons in the closets, having therapeutic, coaching, meditation sessions with professionals to let go of junk and baggage that was holding me back. And I consciously knew that I didn't treat my physical body as well as it could be treated in two forms. Number one, which is my nutrition, and number two, physical training. Now, not that they are excuses, but due to problems that need to be addressed in my guts and my physical body, I avoided looking into nutrition and avoided physical training for the past 6 years of my life because of symptoms that I was experiencing if I did. But I did know I needed to address it. And Nat used to say to me a couple of years ago, he'd watch me, just a couple of things that I would eat, and just hearing that, he's like, you don't do any physical exercise? I'm like, nah, but I've got two kids. I'm lifting them up all the time. He's like, how? You're 6 foot and you're pretty thin. Like, how are you not either overweight or so how are you, he said to me, how are you not physically experiencing a lot of symptoms, or how are you not mentally experiencing like a lot of symptoms? And I said to him at the time, I said, oh mate, I master my mind, I master my heart, I'm fine. And he said something that kind of triggered me a little bit, so I know it was true. It was just like, he's like, you're on such a incredible journey and you don't have to do anything. But he did say to me, he said, Tommy, you're going to get stuck. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you're going to capitalize on your mindset and you're going to capitalize on opening your heart. And there's going to be a point that you hit where you have to look after your physical body to a depth. He said, you can't live in your truth if you're not living in your truth regarding your physical body. If you know that you don't treat your physical body the way that you should regarding your nutrition and lack of training and physical exercise, that's not living in your truth. So what he said to me, and listeners might like this, he said, and I loved it, he said, you're contextually living in a level of truth, but he said it's got parameters, it's got boundaries, it's got, you're in your truth and you're happy and you're loving your life when your conditions are met, which meant free time, playing golf, spending time with kids. So it had a lot of conditions to like feel that free. And I did. I created a life that I felt so free, worked less than most people, had a lot of time doing the things that I wanted to do. And so those words that he'd been murmuring to me a couple of years ago just came to how would you call it? I don't know, the surface late last year when I just started to feel physically run down, but not mentally. I felt really good mentally. My heart felt open. I felt like I was experiencing the emotions I want to feel, but physically, I was lifting up my kids a couple of times. Like my daughter, she's 2, she's like 15 kilos. I'd lift her up for like 30 seconds and then I'd be fatigued. I was like, what is going on here? The same year, I was sick with the flu 3 times, had COVID symptoms twice, apparently, gut symptoms worse than they'd ever been. So it was really confusing for me because mentally, emotionally, I'm like sitting there going, okay, let's go into some stress practices, Tom. What stress is manufacturing this sickness in my body? And I'm trying to do all these mental and emotional practices and nothing was working. So I was kind of getting concerned. I'm like, am I avoiding shit? Do I have some, knowing what I know in the industry, I'm like, there must be something deep down that I'm not aware of from my past that I haven't let go of, and it's because it's still coming up. And so that's been really interesting for me to realize the other side, that actually hasn't been the case. So late last year, I went, actually the start of this year, Patty, I went finally on the endeavor of asking for help with physical health. And I was referred to a very good naturopath by a good friend of mine. And I took his referral because he said he's been doing a lot of research and study into it. So to save myself the time, give this person a call. So I called this person thinking we were going to look after my diet and maybe get me back into some training. And we did a lot of testing, blood work, feces samples, urine samples, all the testing that needed to be done. We looked at my hormone levels, which were out of balance quite a bit. My gut health, which is out of balance a lot, and a lot of testing around my neurotransmitters. And what we found that whilst I was really mentally switched on, clear-headed, whilst my heart was fairly open, my guts and my gut brain was struggling massively. So the biggest benefit of my journey over the past 10 years was learning to be so switched on mentally that you kind of almost suppress it to such a depth you don't notice it. And the specialist said to me, she goes, looking at these results here, your nutrition is so bad, or whatever's going on in your guts is so bad. She said to me, because she specializes in addictions and mental health as well. And she said, what addictions do you have in your life? You must have some. And I'm like, not any traditional addictions, not like porn, sex, coke, alcohol, anything like that, really. And she's like, really, why? It's just caffeine. I said, yeah. And she goes, how's your mental health? And I go, it's pretty good. And she's like, really? So she was fascinated to see that I was so mentally and emotionally content, but physically just rattled. So we started that I didn't know I was going to have to start a caffeine and sugar detox, which to me is like, whoo, that's a big thing. Quitting alcohol when I was 24 years old was hard. Quitting gambling when I was 24 years old was hard. It was nothing compared to this.
Really?
Yeah. It was nothing compared to this. So what I realized was, and I've known this for a long time being in the industry, but
when you say the industry, what do you mean?
Being in the professional industry of understanding how brains work, how people work, how human behavior, what causes people to be addicted, what causes them to get over addiction, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. I'd always known that I was in the past addicted to the experience of alcohol and gambling more so than the chemical itself. So more so than having a biological condition. So for anyone that's listening, like if you're experiencing a biological addiction to something, it's pretty hard to think or feel your way to overcome that. Your body's going to take over and your physical body is going to make the decisions that it needs to make. So people need clinical intervention in that situation. Doesn't matter what they say, doesn't matter how spiritually switched on they are, their body's going to steer the ship and it's going to absolutely crumble if they stop. So it was actually really relieving for her to say, Tommy, I appreciate you're great. I appreciate you're a specialist regarding mindset and emotional mastery, et cetera, et cetera. She said, but if we don't create some intervention here for you and your physical health, it's not changing. And that was relieving for me to hear because I've just spent 9 years trying to think and feel my way into better physical health. And probably because, I've been taught that could happen, et cetera, and it just wasn't working. So for her to say, look, you've done everything you can, there's not something you don't have, like it was so relieving for her to go, I think you're right. I don't think you have any mental stress that's causing this. She goes, I don't think you've got any emotional blockages that are causing this. She said, I'm pretty sure this is just the last line of mind, body, spirit kind of defense that you need to let go of if you want to. And she did say to me, she said, nothing's going to change. You could just change your diet today. Nothing's going to change that. We need to intervene here. We need to get you consuming a couple of things. She was going to recommend the caffeine and the sugar. We're going to need to get you on a pretty heavy supplement plan because you're so deficient at the moment. And that was really relieving for me to hear. It was so good to hear that I could deal with something physically and physically alone, as opposed to physically and emotionally, physically and mentally. And the question, every time I go to the doctor about something, about the flu or something, they want to do that. But are you stressed? And you've got 2 kids. And I'm sitting there like, it doesn't feel like any of those to me. So it was really relieving for her to say that. Say, look, this is not mental. This is not emotional. This is completely physical. This is gut bacteria that's going on in your gut biome, in your stomach, and how it's reacting to certain foods. And we'll know how addicted you are to caffeine and sugar when you stop. So let's see what happens.
And what happened?
It was a shit show. It was it was a nightmare. It was hard. I've been drinking coffee hard for 6 years. I haven't woken up and not had a coffee in 6 years. And if I did wake up and not have a coffee due to external circumstance, I had a headache all day. So I knew I was chemically addicted to the caffeine and to sugar probably as well, because I would have withdrawal symptoms. That's a pretty fast way to tell yourself if you're addicted to something. Now, everyone should take that with a grain of salt, because if you live in Australia in 2023 and you're not addicted to sugar in some way, that's weird. So we're just talking about that need to be addicted, but definitely addicted to caffeine. So so I was recommended that I move from coffee onto green tea for a week to kind of remove the headaches a bit. And then I moved on to black tea for another week. So that was a total of 14 days. And then I went cold turkey after that. So there was a weaning off process. Otherwise, to be honest, I just wouldn't have been out of function to the extent, I would have had to check myself into a hospital. I wouldn't have been able to get up in the morning. It was just terrible, the headaches. But once I got over that, that hurdle, everything started to change after that. After that, it was probably 2 weeks of really bad headaches, and then it was probably 3 to 4 weeks of cognitive dysfunction. So lack of drive, lack of decision-making ability, pausing a lot of the time. My sentences weren't getting stringed together as much. So I was prepared, by the way. We spoke about this, Patty. Like, I was prepared. I was going in, I was spending a lot of money. I was happy to stick out a very long time in the trenches to get to the other side. And I was advised professionally as well how long it was going to take, which was good too. So it was nice. I had the flexibility to go into those trenches and deal with it. But as I spoke to you, coming out the other side now, it's been 12 weeks, and I might recall on these words in a year or two, but I just can't see myself going back to that level of stimulation. The acceptance of understanding that no matter how far I'd come that far off the back of short, sharp stimulation through processed sugar and or caffeine was a massive wake up for me.
And what I want to point out here, and I'm sure it's obvious, but just, you recounting the process that you've been through and having that conversation with your naturopath to realize that it wasn't tied to something emotionally or a stress. It was the physical body that you had to move into and explore, rather than physical body and emotions and spirit and all these different things. Like, no, it's the physical body right now. It's different for everyone. And so I haven't been through the journey that you've been through with releasing alcohol and releasing caffeine and sugar, but I just want to point out that everyone is different and unique, and what is Tom's process with this might not be yours. It could potentially be a whole bunch of emotional stuff that could actually clear it, but it's best to it's best to see someone who knows what they're doing to get some support around this.
Yeah, 110%. I posted, because a few of my friends asked me about the detoxing journey, and I posted yesterday on Facebook, and I said, disclaimer, please note, these are outcomes that I'm experiencing in reflection to symptoms that I was experiencing. Because that's a big problem in this day and age. Everyone goes, I did this and now it works for me. It works for you. It doesn't work for everybody. And that's the same with alcohol, gambling, sugar, caffeine, porn, shopping, anything. you're going to be, addicted in pretty much one of four ways, which is you're going to have a psychological addiction to it. You're going to have an emotional addiction to it, or you're going to have a physical, biological addiction to it, which is where medical intervention and drugs are being used in rehabilitation clinics, et cetera, et cetera. Or you're going to have a culture and society addiction to it, which is you're not addicted to the thing, you're addicted to the experience. So if people are having coffee dates all the time or drinking with friends, it's not that one of those areas is the answer. Generally speaking, the only correct thing to say is all of those areas are the answer, but at their own time. And that's why I think the physical, I'm experiencing such huge benefits at the moment. Yes, it's because of what I'm doing with this naturopath over the past 90 days, but it's also off the back of 8 years of emotional and psychological mastery. Over 1,000, probably 2,000 therapy sessions on myself, over $150,000 spent on myself in regards to therapy. So that's important for people to understand too, because you can do stress reduction work and still feel like something's off. You can go to your specialist and receive some supplements or change your diet and still feel something's off. So if people can start to understand, they can draw on those those different quadrants and feelings of is this a psychological stress-induced thing? Am I experiencing something like that? Is this a therapeutic emotional experience that's causing me blockages? The answer is normally always all of them. Oh. And then you've got the physical and the biological side where you realize delete your mental and emotional side of things. Or can you let's all accept, let's say I'm 34, I think. I'm 34 at the moment. Some people are 50, some people are 78, some people are 12. Doesn't matter how old you are, your body's physically transporting you through this world. It has physical experiences and physical symptoms as well. And that's a big thing that I think people miss out on when it comes to wanting to get into the void or owning your truth or experiencing deeper and deeper levels of fulfillment and oneness and being at peace with themselves, is sometimes there's an accidental neglect, or even like myself, a conscious neglect. And I consciously neglected my physical health for the past 2 or 3 years, and I ignorantly, without knowing it, neglected it for the first 10 to 12 years. But it was definitely a conscious choice. I used to make jokes with my friends, though. Even Nat, my business partner, would say something. He's like, mate, you can't eat that. We'd be playing golf and he'll be having a nutrition bar and I'll be eating a Kit Kat. He's like, mate, you can't eat that. And I'm like, doesn't matter, mate. My head's on, my heart's on, I'm good. You know what I mean? But I used to make that as a joke to make myself feel better. Yeah. But the benefits, I'm just glad I'm just glad I made the decision to finally look after it. It was always going to happen, but it's, as you know, it's come at the right time.
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to say I was calling Nat Nate before, so I just want to clear up that his name is Nat. So I just wanted to bring that up. But also, I think what's cool in this and what I am passionate about is just being where you're at. What is the next chapter inviting out of you? What are you being asked to explore? Because for your path at this point, it was just doing so much of the emotion and being so connected psychologically and understanding the human in that way. And then your next, you were probably sensing it. Your soul was probably it's time to go in the body in the next few years. And that was your process. And it's just then when the invitation was really on the table, when you couldn't deny it and when you couldn't avoid it, when you were really feeling uncomfortable in your guts and what you're like, okay, it's ready for the picking. It's right here. It's primed. I'm ready to go into the body in this next way, in this deeper way. And so I think that's just what, you can become so in tune with yourself when you start to spend time with yourself to go, okay, what is my next step? What is the next thing to focus on? And it could be, like you said, an array of things, or it could be a sole focus on the body if maybe you've spent so much time in the spirit or in the energetic or whatever. So it's just if we can get present enough and create some space and go into the void, it's what is being asked of you. And what I love about this conversation is we're talking about going into nothing and going into the void, which for you, we could perceive that as creating some space by removing sugar and by removing caffeine. But what this is really inviting you into is the void is inviting you into your physical body. It's time to really go into Tom's body and create some harmony in there.
Yeah, it's all probably a good time for me to say, good question to ask yourself, although you normally don't have time to ask yourself, you get hit by life pretty hard, but a good question to ask yourself is what is not true for me anymore? And so weeks leading up to starting the caffeine and the sugar detox, and then even the first couple of weeks in it, I was experiencing a lot of triggers, thoughts, feelings, memories that I haven't opened the door on in years. And not because I was traumatized by them, because I thought I'd resolved them. So that's always a sign for me to go deep and to ask myself what is true, what is not true, when I start to experience what some people would call dysfunction or troubling experiences. I've been at peace for a couple of years in general, pretty much like quite a lot at peace, and to experience a lot of thoughts and feelings coming up, that was it for me. I'm like, we might call it going into the void. For me, it was just like, what am I avoiding? Like, what is going on? And then what came to the wishing, I just kept having this thought every time I pick up a coffee: why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And then I'd have a chocolate. So why are you doing this? So from sitting in the space of pain and trouble, something deeper than myself was trying to let me know, buddy, you're experiencing all these triggers. You're not doing too well mentally. I had an anxiety attack. I hadn't had one of those in 4 years. I had one just before this journey started. And I was like, where did that come from? And then the correlation between how I was eating, and I kept getting thoughts, and I kept getting some mates of mine that were training at the gym, and I kept thinking, and so I was realizing, like, that's where I'm not living in my truth. That's a lie to me now, but it's been a hard lie to accept because I love it and blah, 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 blah. So that was, that was it. That was the start, to be like, I think most of us know too, most of us know what our truth is. And the fastest way to know what your truth is just by understanding what your not truth is. Like, a lot of people say that, what's truth? What is truth? Let's study existence. What is our truth? It's like, the fastest way to get to your truth is just to accept what your non-truths are, because we all know what our non-truths are. It's then we do, feel, do, say, be something, and then feel guilty for it. It's a non-truth. It's fucking lied to ourselves. And that's what was coming up for me. I'll get to 2 p.m. in the afternoon and be like, got a session at 2:30, and I'll go, oh, I'm exhausted. I better have a coffee. That's literally what I was doing. And then I was just sitting there going, you idiot. Why? Why are you living a life where you need a coffee to have a session? That is such a non-truth, Tom. Didn't feel unique, didn't feel honest, felt fake, felt tacky. Felt like such a BS way to manufacture energy.
And with that, Tom, describe how you're feeling now, what you're noticing within yourself, what shifts, where are you at now, 12 weeks, without caffeine, without sugar, what's happening for you?
So first 4 to 6 weeks were a nightmare. Like, didn't want to get through, had cravings, like, still wanted to have sugar. I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm in the zone and I'm trying to get through it. But God, I wish I could have a cup of coffee, and I just want a little twirl at the end of the day, a piece of chocolate to make me feel a little bit better emotionally because I've done nothing all day or whatever it was. But I'm well over 12 weeks in now. And this is really where we get into your podcast, isn't it? Into the nothing. How do I explain it to you? I'll give you the short, sharp facts that sum it up. My anxiety is reduced by about 98%. Stress levels are reduced by 98, 99%. Jitters are not felt anymore. Cravings are gone. Don't know what happened to my sweet tooth. I don't have one. I do not want in any way, shape, or form at the moment anything that's stimulating. My nervous system's been, what I believe, reset to a fundamental level of probably when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. There's no searching, there's no wanting for anything other than what I am at the moment. I'm not asking myself questions, which is pretty interesting because I've loved the study of existence and inquiring. I don't really have any inquiry questions at the moment, which to me is just my brain's quiet, and I used to be a very, very big thinker. I loved thinking. I love thinking fast. What else? IBS symptoms. Haven't had them in 4 weeks. Used to have IBS symptoms probably 2 or 3 times a week. Haven't had them in 4 weeks. Stopped biting my nails. Haven't been able to stop bite my nails since I was 6 years old. Spent over to $5,000 on therapeutic sessions on how to do that. Nothing worked long term. I'm going to see. I'll see if they keep happening or what's going on with that. That's interesting though. So yeah, life is. To be honest with you, Patty, I thought I was living a peaceful life. I did. I was like, I'm living such a peaceful life, but kicking caffeine and sugar, I didn't understand life could be so peaceful. And again, disclaimer, this is my personal experience. This people can kick caffeine and sugar and they get more stressed. Even 3 months on, it's completely personal to me. But to get into your podcast title, I've never loved sitting in the void so much. It's the last thing I want to get away from. and I've spent coming up to 10 years on figuring out either how to get out of the void or how to make it manageable, but not how to own it to the extent that you love it. It was like you sit in the void and you own the void because it creates fruits. You get the benefits if you own the void. It's just been a much deeper drop in of like, oh no, this is it. This is where it is.
And can you describe what that feels like? Like what emotions are you experiencing, or what are you noticing when you talk about being in the void?
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I've never experienced such little emotion. And to me, if you asked me a year ago, I would say there's a problem with that. You should be experiencing joy, excitement, compassion, contentment, etc., etc. Very little emotion. I mean, my personal feel is like I'm in such a deep state of connection and love that it can't be conceptualized. I don't know when it starts or when it ends. It's just there. Trust your listeners will get some of this. I can't use the words there because there's no there in here. So time and space matters kind of dissolved massively regarding my experience at the moment. I've always been really big on time and space. I love spaces and time. I love the conceptualization of space as time, healing, let go past, welcome the future, live in the moment. Like all of that kind of dissolved a lot of that at the moment. So the feelings are not big on this word, oneness. I don't even want to use that word actually. I wrote it down for a client, said it to them the other day. I'm just exactly where I'm meant to be. And there's no search to get out of it. And there's no search for it to end. There's no need for it to finish. There is no desire. And please note, I know myself pretty well. This emotional and spiritual experience would have a direct correlation due to my lack of dopamine levels at the moment, because my body isn't producing dopamine because it never had to, because et cetera, et cetera. So there's correlation there as well between this deep emotional spiritual experience I'm experiencing. But isn't it beautiful at the same time, because I've stopped doing the one thing that stopped me from being able to get here, which is high caffeine and sugar intake, keep my nervous system at a 7. Just makes sense to me. Of course I couldn't feel or just, experience life to this depth. I'm running too hot and too high all the time. I can think I'm feeling it, think I'm there. Now the side effects from that, if you want to take it to like a commercial side, lacking productivity or not productive business-wise. But at the same time, like in the past, where that would trigger me to have coffee and do more work, I don't want to do anything about it. I just could not give a shit. Like the best way I can say it, Patty, is like I've never not given so many fucks, but not out of aggression. Just I don't care, and that feels nice. So yeah, it's
and like just so sorry to cut you off, but just so different and unique to how society is functioning. It's this concept of going into the nothing and creating space, and I don't even know why I'm such a big advocate for it. I guess I love the feeling of it, and yeah, it is peaceful. It feels like nothing. It's actually not a lot of stimulation. It's simple. And they're like accessing stillness somehow, for me personally, feels so fulfilling. I'm like, why do I love nothing so much? And why does going into this, for example, for me, I love accessing nothing, the void, darkness, spaciousness in meditation, specifically through, I think I found the gateway through Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations, but truthfully, I think I've accessed my own little way of doing things within that, which is part of the process and awesome. But for me, why is that so fulfilling? And then it's interesting that this place of nothing or the void is so rejuvenating. It's that breakaway. It's that, yeah, it's that pattern interrupt that I think can really allow us to rejuvenate, reset, recalibrate, and create from this place. And for me, like, what a beautiful world to think that more people would be taking action from this place, because suddenly I can come from more love. Suddenly, my business partnership in Daydream Dream Day, I haven't actually let my beautiful listeners know that partnership has dissolved and ended, and I was able to access so much grace in that. And it's because I am so connected to nothing. I know that this might not make sense and it might not be logical, but I have moments where I'm not so connected to my physical body, and I have space away in the nothing. And so it makes my physical existence so much easier, because I'm not fully in it all the time. And I can't wait to see what unfolds for you from this place of nothing and stillness, and not having that big urge and desire to create, and just actually being in this place of what sounds like simplicity. And then to think of what you have created and the impact that you've had from previous chapter, and just seeing what life is inviting you into and what you'll create from this place when, there's a lot more stillness here. And for me, it just feels like a lot calmer world if there were more people connected to this place of just like, oh, I don't have to actually be on such a high or such a low. We can actually just be, there's somewhere in the middle. And then, yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think, should we go there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we're always headed, Tom.
I'm putting myself in hot water here. So do you remember the poem that Nat shared at the event on the last day? Hey?
Rumi.
And there's a line in that poem about going home. Remember that? I'll have to get it. And
but for our listeners, it's a Rumi poem. And if you don't know, Rumi's a Sufi poet, and if you don't know of Rumi, please look Rumi up. But yeah, just great wisdom. But yeah, keep going. So there was a line in the poem about going home.
Going home. And one of the things that I've really been resonating with is something that I've studied and coached heaps of so many people through over the past 9 years, is dealing with loneliness, right? It seems to, when you enter the void, one of the toughest experiences is isolation or loneliness, or when you're getting there anyway, to try to get in that void, it feels like that. And so there's a lot of this, I believe, unfortunate mislabeling of we're all individuals, and that's why we feel lonely. Because there's a great quote out there that says the only thing that connects every human on the planet is the fact that we're all doing this experience on our own. And I used to believe that. I was like, yeah, that's true. We've all got an individual psyche. That's just our psyche, right? We've got an individual psyche. And one of the things that I've come to fruition and learning, and I'm just simmering with it because I don't teach things that I've learned straight away. I need to sit with it and get more evidence points and et cetera, is that on a spiritual level, the reason why we feel lonely is because we're not home. It's not that we're home and we feel lonely and we're disconnected. It's actually that we're not home. And so over the past 3 weeks, all I felt is that I'm on the way home. And that's provided me with so much comfort and securities to realize, oh my fucking God, I'm going home. Now people can interpret that any way that they want. The way I experience that is, deeper than my psychological construct and my feelings, something deep in me on a spiritual level is just like, all right, you've done so much, Tommy, and there is so much more to do, but it is time you turn your shoulder and come back, and it's time to walk home. And so that for me is just providing, I don't know why, but so much love and just stillness in my body. And I think there's an acceptance of the first 34 years of my life have been, due to, it's meant to be, by the way, I'm not guilty, but I love it, has been searching for home through to the assumption that it was out there. So it's searching for home. Where is home? And that's why there's often underlying levels of loneliness. There's something in you is like, but you're going the wrong way, but you know what I mean? It's like when you leave to go on a holiday, right? And you get on a plane, you feel homesick. When I leave the house now and I leave my kids, I feel homesick. No wonder why I felt homesick in my heart for so many years because I'm leaving thinking I'm going to find it. And something in me is like, that's the wrong way. Like, so the last 3 weeks without caffeine and sugar, it's allowed my whole nervous system to reset. And yeah, that's what's coming to fruition. Like, I'm on the way home. And I'm even, skeptical to share it here because I think it is so personal to me that I'm not going to start advocating that. It is a very personal experience. And I think deeply, deeply close to home spiritual experiences are very personal. That's why I like this podcast, because not many people talk about them in group settings. But yeah, that is providing so much peace. The void is home. The void's carrying me home. Like, that's a very, if I could conceptualize anything out of this last 3 weeks, that's it, Patty. It's that I'm turned and I'm on the way home. And like 90, I literally can't find a problem with life at the moment. I just can't. I got problems in life for sure, but yeah, not attached to any of them. And for some of it, like, I just ignorantly did not realize that I would experience such a large level of detachment from kicking caffeine and sugar. Nothing in my brain said that would happen. I was like, cool, let's work on this. It's great that I don't have itchy skin anymore. It's great that I don't have acid reflux symptoms. It's great that IBS is gone. But for me, you know what I'm talking about? I'm like, oh no, this is the good stuff. I'm done. I'm like, whew, take my credit card, lady. How much do you want?
Yeah,
like,
take me home, gal. Put it on my credit card. I don't care.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of my experience.
It definitely answers my question, Tom, and it's so beautifully timed. I did a post yesterday because I've been working with a lot of women over the last week, and there's this feeling for women and potentially men too about just feeling overwhelmed and overgiving and, the people pleaser and the good girl and just giving so endlessly and not being able to say no and create some space and be with self and look after self, whatever that looks like. Could be a wine, it could be meditation, it could be a holiday, it could just be, hey, calling your girlfriend saying, hey, can you come over and take my kids for a few hours? I just need some time on my own. So, and in that post, I was talking about the truth of who you are. The home base is, it can't be found in all the busyness. It needs to be, you need to access it in some way, shape or form through nothing. And whatever that looks like for you, whatever space, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 hours, it could be 5 days, 5 months, something. But how fulfilling it is to go into nothing, whether that's having a water fast and having a break from food for a couple of days, it completely recalibrates a relationship with food. And there's so much appreciation there. But what I love about that is there's so much choice. And for me, with my relationship with caffeine, when my boyfriend Ted had a big accident in 2019 and I was in PTSD and just fried from the whole situation, my body couldn't handle caffeine. I just physically couldn't do it. I gave it up. So I was like just cold turkey and just done. And how I'm like, whoa, life is so full the more that I remove, the more that I eliminate things, like you were saying at the beginning. It's so interesting, like in 2020 or 21, I was sorting out my finances. I'm like, okay, I'm just being so messy. I need to get my shit together. And I'm like, part of me just needed a break from having a phone, but also I'm like, I don't want a phone contract. I don't want that, like the money. So I didn't have a phone for 10 months. I also didn't buy makeup for a whole year. So this time away has made me so much more connected to myself and brought me a little closer to home. And these little moments where it's just like the elimination of something, suddenly it brings me closer to nothing, to void of something, whether it's makeup, whether it's fake tan, whether it's my phone, whether it's food for a water fast. Somehow this elimination process, removing something, is actually so fulfilling. And back to your point of coming home, and I did a YouTube video the other day about alignment, because everyone's like, am I in alignment? How do I get in alignment? Is this job in alignment? Is this boy in alignment? Is this girl in alignment? Like, is this drink in alignment? Like all of these questions. And I think sometimes, like you were saying, we focus so much on these external actions And what I love to do is, what if we just came back to a really simple way of coming into alignment? So the way that I've been looking at it is, if we are from a scientific level, from a quantum level, 99.999% nothing. Like when you really go into a subatomic level and you look at how much matter there is, there's actually nothing for the most part. And for me, I'm like, logically, okay, going home, how could we access nothing to go home? It's kind of like a phone needing to be charged. Like it needs to go back to home base to be charged. I even think about those pads that people have now where you can actually just put your phone on a pad and it just goes home, it just recharges. And I think about that with the way that I love to access nothing is to go into the void with our imagination, with eyes closed, with senses, not smelling, not listening to anything, not tasting anything, not doing any actions, letting go of thinking about the things I need to do and my boyfriend and Tom Cartwright, letting go of everyone that I know and slowly letting go of even being connected to my physical body with my imagination and going into the void. It's like I'm coming home to what I really am, which is nothing.
Yeah.
And for some reason, as I said earlier in this podcast, and my listeners have heard me say so many times, the more I spend time in this, the more connected I feel, because it feels like I'm going home.
Yeah.
And somehow it makes my life so much easier. My physical, when I open my eyes and I get up and I go and have brekkie and I have my muffin, and then the choices that I make in the day, and when I need to go and sort out zero in my accounting, windows open up and I can just take action, and the solution I was looking for that I couldn't find previously, suddenly there's harmony, because it feels like I'm going home and being in harmony with what I really am, which is nothing.
Yeah. Which is what you just explained is why it's so hard to teach, because it goes against everything we're taught in this culture. It's not even a psychological thing. It's just our culture does not teach us that. It teaches us the opposite. More is better. That's why everyone finds it very hard. It's like, what do you mean do nothing? You've experienced it with a lot of women you've worked with, right? I've experienced it with so many people. Their number one question is like, no, Tom, but I got emails to do. Just sit and be with yourself. And it's the world's going to fall apart if we just stop doing something. So yeah, these podcasts are needed. These conversations are needed because home is nothing. One of the things I've really appreciated with you, Patty, on a personal level, and I said this to Nat, because I asked Nat, I was like, oh, Nat, I want to ask Patty to come to this event just to give her a free ticket. Like, she's awesome. It's like, oh, okay, she's a good fit for the event. And I was just like, mate, trust me, she'll just fit into the event. I didn't share this with him, but I'll share it with you, Patty. One of the things I like about you is that you've probably, now that I say it, actually probably similar to me. Like you've grown so much, and I know you do your own research and your own study and stuff, but I would almost, if it's okay to say, suggest that you've grown so much from what you've detoxed from. Like ages ago when you were like, I'm doing a year without the phone, I read that post, my heart was like, that is one of the most courageous things ever. You can spend tens and tens and thousands of dollars in therapy sessions, or you can just detox from things in life. And that'll open yourself up to vulnerability. Like to go a year without makeup, I would honestly, hands down, say that'd be better than $5,000, $10,000 spent with a therapist on how to increase physical confidence based on how you look. You know what I mean? Like, and I've taught women to fall in love with themselves physically. And by doing exercises where you look at the mirror naked and all of this stuff, and you've got to love yourself, you can do all that, or you can just not do the thing that's preventing you from getting to that anyway. That's what I really admire in you. Like the year without the phone, that hearing that you coffee detox, like it's just underrated. And we should probably even do a second podcast on it specifically, of just like, it is so underrated, isn't it? Just what is the non-truth to you? What is the thing that's causing you? Just let it go. I'm yet to find someone who has evolved to an extent that they're really content and so peaceful with themselves, and they have a lot of stuff. I'm just yet to meet that person. I know a lot of business owners that are preaching it, but they're so full that I don't understand how they're acting. You know what I mean? Like, nothing. Yeah. I said it to a mate the other day. I said, the worst thing about going into the nothing is you can't commercialize it. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, it's not good for business. No, you can't.
It might be though. I don't know. Like, well, let's see. I feel like things are shifting and things are changing. And I feel like as more and more people, because the personal development, it's everywhere. And even Ariana Grande is using crystals. Like this stuff is becoming so mainstream. And so I feel like so much is shifting and changing. And everything's shifting and changing. I feel like everything's wanting to become lighter and simpler. And I think the more that I delve into this path and into this exploration and this experiment of playing with what else can I let go of, and I just feel like more and more people are choosing this. And so life is going to become really hard when you ignore yourself. Like life just becomes like brutal, like you were saying what you were feeling. And I know for me, like when I was drinking coffee, when I was really in PTSD and shock after Ted's accident, like I was literally like, oh my God, I felt like my insides, like apart from my skin, everything was shaking. And I was like, oh, this is seriously fucked. I can't operate like this. I have to let it go. And it's one of my mentors and friends, and now I facilitate with her, Rebecca Thompson. She's been on the podcast a few times. She says that like the thing actually gives you up. Like alcohol gives you up at a certain point. Caffeine gives you up, and it makes it so uncomfortable to hold on. Like you just can't hold on. It's like my business partnership that's just been released. Like it was literally just like the decision was so clear. I couldn't even hold on if I tried. Like between the conversation around ending the business and actually ending the business and refunding clients and closing everything down as being professional as we could was 2 weeks. It was like, this is over. This is over. You're going into nothing. It's done. Your relationship with coffee is done.
Real good way to sum it up. Truth is fast. Non-truth is slow. Non-truth is sameness. Non-truth is repetition. Real truth is fast and changing and moving and gone. So that in itself is feedback to suggest how truthful it was for you. That's so good. That's unreal. We ran a culture and society myths class on Wednesday night for our Evolve members, Patty, and we were teaching on that class that your physical body doesn't lie. You lie, we lie. Our linguistic and our psychology lies, but your physical body doesn't lie. So yeah, if you're experiencing physical symptoms due to people, places, or things in your life, it's not a lie. You know what I mean? Like you just can't. Yeah, you can't get away from it. Your physical body will tell you everything. That's why a good professional, whilst they ask you questions, they're not looking for what you're saying. They're looking for what your body language is doing. Because the body does not lie.
Wow, Tom. Well, as always, you and I could talk for forever. And but there were some things that I wanted to chat to you about the weekend that we had when I went to your weekend with Nat, which was just, I think from where I've been in the personal development world and what I've experienced, and probably just a reflection of where I'm at too, is I so enjoyed your weekend and what I learned and the people there. And also, as I said, like I really enjoyed being guided by men. But I enjoyed how light it was. It was really deep concepts, but we moved through them with a sense of lightness, and there was no pressure to be expressing emotion in a certain way. You didn't have to feel anger, but you could if you wanted to. You could cry if you wanted to, but there was no pressure to. And I so enjoyed that. But I feel like I should get you and Nat on the podcast, and we can dive deep one day. But for anyone who's listening, Tom, and just the journey of letting go and your process with sugar and caffeine, is there any advice that you're just trusting intuitively would like to be shared right now, or any guidance?
Speak to a good specialist. Yeah, find a good specialist. And most people go, well, what does that look like? Well, the two funnels that you can look at is traditional medicine or functional medicine. And in my experience and all the research I've done, is traditional medicine is more so about medicating symptoms to suppress symptoms, which is great in some situations. And functional medicine is more of an approach to use alternative medicines to relieve symptoms, to sort the root cause out, so you no longer need any medicines, whether they're traditional or herbs or whatever it might be. So the only advice I would ever share there is speak to a good specialist. And the first way to start is just to notice that there are two different approaches that you can go. They're pretty much the only two approaches you can take, which is traditional medicine and being medicated, the traditional therapeutic approach, or there's functional medicine, which is looking at, it is a form of medication, but looking at functionally looking after the root cause of issues, so you never have to take it again, as opposed to, we won't get into those talks. But yeah, that's what I'd share with someone. And both approaches are great, and whatever approach you go with will be perfect for you until you need something else.
Mm. And Tom, for anyone who's just enjoying your ethos and that, you know, potentially could go and listen to episode 14 about addiction, and they're just curious about your world and potentially being mentored by you and your business and what you stand for, where can they head to?
So I'm pretty specific these days. Like if you want to change your relationship with alcohol and learn to drink less and feel fresh and do it in a fun, lighthearted way, just head to drinklessfeelfresh.com. If you don't really need to change your relationship with alcohol, but a lot of things are resonating with you, just head to the Drink Less Feel Fresh podcast. Every Monday morning, 8 a.m. Anybody's welcome. You can register and show up live. Nat and I dive into a 20 to 30-minute conversation to start the week feeling fresh AF. And their psychological and human behavioral insights into why we do what we do. So pretty interesting for any situation that you might be in life.
Thank you so much. And yeah, everyone go and follow them on social media. Of course, I'll have in the show notes below links, as we always do and as every podcast does. And I just want to say a big thank you to you, Tom, for coming back on Into the Nothing and just diving into all the concepts, which is what I love about you. And yeah, I shared with you when I was with you at your event in one of the breaks. I just got so emotional because you're just such a beautiful human. You just care so deeply. And when I was at your event at the lunch that we went to, which was a very bougie, beautiful lunch, you know, one of your clients who was there as a participant shared with me her story, and a big story. And she's so young, early 20s, and she'd navigated so much in her life. And one part of that was she shared how you were really there for her in some really, really dark, challenging times. And you drove from Sydney to her town a couple of hours away to be with her. And I was like, fuck me, this guy is next level. And I'm sure hearing that story, there are hundreds of stories like that you have committed to. And it's just, yeah, you're just a beautiful human, Tom. You really matter. It's really cool.
You're too kind. Thank you so much. It means the world to me, Patty. We've come a long way, hey? Like we've been on this fucking journey together. You know that, right? Like since 2017.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much. And my hat goes off to you. You're an incredible person. You were the first. I told you on the phone, like we had one ticket that we could have given away to the event, and you need to be a switched on, which meant mindset, functionally switched on, resourceful, functional, and very responsible human being that doesn't bitch or complain, that knows how to take responsibility for their own emotional state, that also loves the spiritual side and can handle very deep concepts very quickly. I'm just like, Patty, where's Patty's number?
It's me.
I'm like, where are you? And of course, perfect person to call, because what did you do? One of the mindset principles I love, say yes, then work out how. You're like, yeah, I'm going to say yes, Tom. Now I'll go and make sure that I can make it work, but I'm king. And I was like, of course I've called the right person.
It's how I signed up to everything. It's how I signed up to doing this podcast. I'm like, just go for it. So thank you so much, Tom. And thank you, of course, to our beautiful listeners. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're feeling inclined, please share this with a friend of yours that you think this conversation would benefit. We are doing it because we love talking about these topics, but of course we want to help as many people as possible. Just feel free. Just live the life that you want to live. And yeah, I ran into a woman yesterday at Officeworks who was just like, oh my God, Patrice, shout out to you if you're listening. I know you know who you are. And she said to me, she's like, Patrice, it was a really big year last year and your podcast really helped. And I was like, oh, fuck, this podcast is such a passion project. But I'm like, the fact that it's helping someone really, hits home. So thank you for tuning in. Please share it with anyone you think that would benefit from this conversation. Please subscribe. And go check out the other conversation with Tom, episode 14, if you're a keen bean. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.